Hello and welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up, where I go live each week and challenge you to do a different warm-up exercise and to implement that into your warm-up routine for the week. See how you like it, see if you get any benefits from it, and then you'll have a whole arsenal of many different warm-up exercises. I've been doing this live weekly warm-up for quite a while now, and there's really quite a big catalog of different warm-ups. You can find all of them and all the previous ones on the Quick Start Clarinet YouTube channel. There is a playlist titled Live Weekly Warm-Up or Weekly Warm-Ups, and you can see all of them there if you want even more warm-up exercises. Today is a perfect one because it sort of brings everything together. It's a 3-step warm-up, which is what I love. That's sort of the warm-up routine that I teach is this 3 steps of long tones, scales or technique, and then articulation. And this one is perfect because it does all of those with just one scale. And this is really great for if you're trying to learn a scale in a new key, or also if you don't have tons of time to do a really in-depth, complicated warm-up. This one is perfect for sort of getting everything that you need, getting really comfortable with one particular scale, and having a great warm-up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just one scale. I'm going to do A flat minor because that's one of the trickier ones. That's always a little bit tricky. A flat minor has a lot of accidentals in the key signature. Technically, it should probably be called G sharp minor as well. A flat minor technically has 7 flats, whereas G sharp minor is 5 sharps and is a little bit nicer. But for whatever reason, I always think of it as A flat minor. In any case, we're going to be taking that key because it's a tricky key and doing the whole 3-step warm-up routine. So we're going to start with long tones on it. Then we're going to do a technique exercise with it, and then we're going to do an articulation exercise with it. So I'm going to start off by demonstrating this, and I'll do the long tones. And on the long tones, it's just like any other long tone exercise. We want to really think about the very best tone on every single one of the notes. And also it'll be nice because it'll give us plenty of time to think about where we're going for the next note in the scale. So our brain can sort of like process the trickier key of A flat minor or G sharp minor. And for now, I'll just do just the 1 octave going up for the long tones, just so you don't have to sit here and listen to me play long tones for several minutes. But you can do it 2 octaves, 3 octaves, up and down, whatever feels good for you. And of course, it also depends a little bit on how much time you want. If you're trying to make this a super quick warm-up, then just 1 octave up can be enough. Just make sure that you're still holding the notes nice and long and that you're getting a really good transition and even sound between all of them. The other great thing is that this can really get you into some different long tones that you're not used to doing. For example, like C sharp or D flat to E flat or D sharp. I don't know if I've ever really done that in like a long tone exercise before. So it's a great chance to try some different intervals, different notes, especially because normally in our long tones, we're sort of using just the whole ones, sort of like the natural fingerings of the clarinet. We don't have all of these extra side keys and other keys that we have to fuss with. So it's really good to do long tones on those notes that inherently don't sound quite as resonant on the clarinet, and then see if we can do what we need to do to make them sound as resonant as we can. So that's the long tone portion. Now we're going to take the same exact scale and do a technique exercise out of it. I'm just going to do just a plain old 2-octave scale. I am doing the melodic minor if you're playing along at home or anything like that, just so you know. But I'll do just a normal 2-octave scale. Now really focusing on the technique. And now that I've done the long tones, I'm really like familiar with the key and I like know what the notes are going to be. So the technique stuff should be easier, at least for figuring out the notes. And now I can really focus on what my fingers are doing. So by doing just that 2-octave scale up and down, I'm starting to get even more familiar with the key signature and learning the notes of the scale. And then I also am getting my fingers warmed up. And most importantly, thinking about maintaining the great sound from the long tones into the technique, the scale portion of this. And then finally, we can do an articulation exercise. You can do just the sort of normal scale articulation I really like, which is like this. And that can be really effective. Doing it in a different key is interesting. And that gives you many repetitions to really get the articulation warmed up and comfortable. The other thing that you could do is like an articulation pattern. So like a slur to tongue to. And that gets you practice coordinating your fingers and your tongue at the same time, while again moving through all of the notes, so you get a little technical practice in there. And then of course we always want good tone, so that's a great sort of hybrid that brings everything together. And if you can think about an articulation pattern and maybe even a few different articulation patterns while you're playing through the scale, then chances are you're pretty confident and comfortable with the key signature. So this is the perfect way to warm up if you're learning a new scale, if it's one of those tricky ones like A flat minor or G flat major, those ones that are at sort of the bottom of the circle of fifths with all of the accidentals in the key signature, and you're trying to get comfortable with these less familiar keys. This is perfect because it gives you that long tone where you also get great tone and great sound on these unusual or less familiar notes that are less frequently played. And of course, you're also have enough time to process and think about what all of those notes are. Then you move that into a technique exercise where you're still slurring, still getting a great sound, and now you're sort of moving through the notes a little bit more quickly. And then you finally do an articulation exercise, which is sort of the final step, because articulation sort of takes the most effort to think about, to play it really well. But if you can think about the articulation and get that really well while you're playing through the scale at the end of it, then chances are you really know how to play the scale well by that point as well. So this is the perfect exercise for learning new keys, and it's also the perfect exercise for doing just a quick warm-up when you want to get all three parts of the warm-up, but don't have a lot of time to like flip through your book, or maybe you don't have your music. This one you can do just from memory extremely easily. And remember, you can make anything an exercise from the 3-step warm-up, as long as on the long tones you're taking your time and getting the sound you want. On the technique, you're still slurring and still getting the sound you want and moving your fingers in a controlled, relaxed, steady, rhythmic way. And then on the articulation, still great sound, but now you're focusing on moving your tongue and getting the shape that you want for the notes. So I hope that was helpful. I think this is a really, really fun sort of super quick, super easy, really effective warm-up. I am curious to see how you all like it. I really challenge you to try this week and see how it works for you. You may not like it because it's not an in-depth enough warm-up. You don't feel like you're totally warmed up and ready to go at the end of it, and that's totally fine. You might love it because you feel like it's just enough time to like get in there, get your warm-ups done in like maybe even just 5 minutes, and then be ready to go on and start playing. So let me know what you think about it. Good luck trying it out, and I'll see you next week in the next live weekly warm-up.